Hi everyone, welcome back to the weekly Armchair Kickoff podcast. Today, lads, I'm joined by Steve McGrath, our Tottenham fan, Chrissy, Gearon, an Arsenal fan, and Dale Donnell, lifelong Manchester United fan. So, lads, look, next week the Premier League is back, and the two most notable fixtures in the Premier League next week are Manchester United versus Tottenham Hotspur, and Arsenal versus Manchester City. So, like, I suppose with these games happening, they're probably two biggest games we have, and they're big talking points from both games. One side you look at with the Manchester United and Tottenham game, it's like Paul Pogba versus Jose Mourinho. That's kind of like the big headline with that one. And obviously then with Arsenal, you have Mikel Arteta coming up against Manchester City and his like his mentor, Pep Guardiola. So like they're the two biggest games, and obviously like we're all of us here, though we all have kind of a big interest in them. Steve, I'm going to come to you first in terms of like the Manchester United and Spurs game. Obviously Jose Mourinho was at the helm. When he came in, you were on a bad spell of form. Pochettino, was after leaving, and there was question marks around how Mourinho would get on with the current Tottenham squad. Like, how do you feel with how Jose Mourinho has kind of came in, and how do you feel of his tenure so far?
To be honest, I was giving him a free pass for the season. Literally, if you went back on my own Twitter feed, the day Pochettino got sacked, I had actually written like a big long emotional tweet about how we needed to back him, and that he hadn't taken Spurs as far as he could. He'd just taken that particular group of players as far as he could. And literally within hours then the club announced his departure. So and a lot of people gave me a lot of slack or a lot of criticism because saying that I just jumped on the Mourinho wagon all of a sudden, but it was like Pochettino wasn't coming back, and I absolutely adore the man, but I had to get behind the new manager, I suppose I kind of alluded to it on the last time I was on with you, Keane, but it's like being a Spurs fan for years, it was always just looking at the likes of Chelsea and seeing them with a manager like Jose Mourinho and going, jeez, why can't we have someone like that? Do you know what I mean? I think that's always been like Daniel Levy's kind of aspiration, is to have that high profile manager in there. He tried it with AVB, didn't really work out. So I guess from a Spurs standpoint, I mean, I think he's in there to do a job. He's a short-term manager, and I think everyone kind of knows and accepts that. And we're just hoping that we'll have some silverware before he goes. But as of this season, I mean, up until we got the few injuries and that, we were flying it in terms of results. We were, I think, only Liverpool had a better record for the first, 7 games or whatever. But I mean, we've been crippled with injuries this season, absolutely crippled. So I think a lot of Spurs fans were glad that the break came when it came, in terms of having our squad back to full strength. But yeah, I think I'm happy Jose is there. If Pochettino was to go, I'm happy it's him that's there.
And do you feel like, obviously Spurs at the moment, there looks like to be kind of disputes around the contracts and kind of players leaving. It almost seems like Spurs have to go through a rebuild. Do you think maybe if this is the case where you're going to maybe start a rebuild, especially you have the new stadium as well, do you think is Jose the right man to kind of take you forward with this?
I see. I am kind of, like I said, about the project at Spurs. Yeah. I mean, I get it. I know it's a long process. In terms of the rebuilds, Pochettino was famously among Spurs fans, was interviewed last season before the Champions League final, before any of that, and it was talking about the stadium, and he said that we have a beautiful house, but it's time that we maybe need some newer furniture.
Yeah.
So he alluded to that a rebuild was needed back then. He knew, and he, in another interview, he spoke about having a painful rebuild. Painful, obviously, being that we had to let go of some players that we kind of were emotionally attached to. But so he knew it had to be done. He realised that, and there's conspiracy theories there among some Spurs fans as to whether maybe did Daniel Levy pick up on that and the cheaper option was to get rid of him and get Mourinho in, you know, and try and get Mourinho to fix the squad of players that we have with little investment, as opposed to what Pochettino wanted, which was large investment, which we know Daniel Levy isn't a fan of as such.
Absolutely. And Dale, what do you think of the whole like Jose Mourinho situation? Obviously, he came in, he done well in the kind of short term. Tottenham had their fair share of injuries this season. Do you think is he the man to take Tottenham forward in terms of like this new project that they have?
No, I don't think he's the man to lead any project at a club that has aspirations to do what Spurs want to do. I think that stage has passed Mourinho. I think he's a damaged force. And I think it's only a matter of time before himself and Levy clash. You're going into this transfer window of uncertainty now, and it's going to be difficult for all clubs. Spurs aren't going to be able to spend the money they would have wanted. United aren't going to be able to spend the money they would have wanted. No one is. And I think Mourinho is going to kick up a fuss like he always does when he doesn't get the players he wants, because on the pitch, they're not going to get the results he wants. He's not going to let his reputation go through the water, and that's what he did at United as well. His football is outdated. I don't think Spurs fans are enjoying his football. I remember lying a few times when he was United manager saying I did, but I didn't really. But I think they let go such a good manager. And even though I totally agree with Steve that it might have been cheaper to get in Mourinho because he wasn't looking at such a big rebuild. But Pochettino, for Warriors, I certainly would trust him with that long-term view and let him sit there and say, look, it's going to be 2 or 3 tough years, because he did that already.
Yeah, and like I look at like Pochettino, and he's a fantastic manager. Like what he done with that Spurs squad, like post Tim Sherwood, like that squad was kind of was fucked. Like there's no other word for it. Like, do you know what I mean? And what Pochettino did, he brought a team that was on the cusp of a top 4 to a team that's at a top 4 team now, and brought them to a Champions League final with minimum investment. Like, so I think long term Mourinho's probably not the right man, but Tottenham do have a load of young players in there. Like, though you see the likes of Troy Parrott, Ryan Sessegnon, and the left. I think the left back as well. Steve, what's his name? Can't think of his name. Young fella. You're right back at left back. Yeah.
For Tanya, yeah. Well, he naturally is a centre half, but he's been kind of thrown in right hand, left back. Like, he's doing very well. Yeah.
I think the one thing about Mourinho is that might appeal to Spurs fans and Levy, that in the past few years, Pochettino hasn't been reckless enough in terms of cup competitions and wanting to win an FA Cup or a League Cup. Yeah. And Spurs fans are crying out for a trophy, and they've had teams in the past few years that they definitely would have warranted 1 or 2. And he hasn't been reckless enough, and that's one of my criticism of Pochettino, that if he did become Manchester United manager, people are thinking, oh, the new Alex Ferguson or maybe even the new Mourinho. He's not reckless enough. He set aspirations to win the Premier League or Champions League. You have to get your bread and butter first. And that's why the FA Cup and League Cup is important. Mourinho will go and try and win that.
Yeah, and like Mourinho does have a good record in the cup competition. So look, maybe like you look at it, if they can maybe win one of them cup competitions, it might be the catalyst for success. I suppose time will tell. Chrissy, what do you think of the whole like Jose Mourinho? Like, I know before Mikel Arteta come in, he was heavily linked with Arsenal as well. So like, I know you're an Arsenal fan, you probably will have different views to what we had, because obviously me and Dale, being United fans, we've experienced Mourinho. What do you feel?
It's very much a tough one, I think. Like Dale and Steve hit the nail on the head in terms of Pochettino. He done the best with a group of players he could have possibly done, and it was kind of like a roadblock in the end, if that makes sense. It was kind of, you've done what you can, and let's forget about it and move on. Mourinho is one of those ones. The amount of criticism he can get in a season is probably on a week-to-week basis by every football fan around the globe. But he's still one of those managers, if you could probably fancy, if he needs a 1-0 job, he's the kind of manager who will go out and get that result. In terms of going forward, he's not the man. I think Spurs brought him in more of as an attraction more than anything, to say, okay, we can bring in one of the best managers in the world now, right? Mourinho hasn't been at his best for probably 4, 5, 6 years. I think it's more of a use as a kind of marquee manager signing than anything. I wouldn't rule out though Tottenham going back in for Pochettino in a year or two time, being perfectly honest, because he seems the way he's talking. He seems
See his
very
interview where he said it.
Oh yeah, I seen the interview recently. Yeah. I don't know, like Dale was right in the terms of like not having a trophy. That's what Tottenham fans are really kind of looking for at the minute. Like as an Arsenal fan, I'm only kind of going out on a limb. FA Cup is probably the best we're going to get for a while. You know what I mean? But no, like in terms of any trophy itself, it's there to be won. You know, regardless if it's League Cup or FA Cup, I think any trophy right now for Spurs would be a good boost. But I don't know. Like when Arsenal were being linked with Mourinho, I was kind of looking at it two ways. Is Arsenal become that team that normally kind of passes the ball into the net? That will be gone, and defensively will be a lot more competitive. You know.
Well, that's what you need.
You know, that's what I was looking at. Like I'll take a 1-0 home win 38 weeks in a row, you know, than score three and concede 7. Like you've seen it in the last 5 days. We bet Charlton 6-0 in a friendly, and 3 days later losing to Brentford. You know what I mean?
I think the interesting point you raised there, Chrissy, was about Mourinho and kind of his tactics and way Pochettino was. Pochettino was kind of forward thinking and progressive as a manager. You bring in Mourinho then, who's the complete opposite. And I'm just thinking the term that was used there, long-term view with Spurs. You've scrambled up one plan and you're going with a completely new one. So it's a new long-term plan. It's longer than the first one was initially supposed to last. You know, they went the total opposite route of having a progressive manager who, if you watch football nowadays, it's all about pressing. It's all about getting up the pitch and attacking football. Mourinho, as you mentioned, the 6 years that he hasn't been great. I think he's proven that kind of football is outdated as things stand. Football is always evolving. And with Pochettino, it looked like Spurs had a manager that was watching the trend of football. They've just gone back 10 years. And I don't think it's going to work in the sense they wanted in Premier League or Champions League success.
See, a lot of Spurs fans would criticise that as well. They just like 16-17, where we Spurs were basically unplayable almost. And it was high press, high intensity. Like it was just non-stop. It was relentless. The fullbacks were pressing. But then over the few seasons, Pochettino kind of changed his style a little bit. And instead of the high press, high intensity, he kind of made us sit back a bit and wait to get possession. And when we got possession, it was an awful lot of sideways passing, safe passing, trying to get the ball up into the box and hope that we can get it to Kane's feet. So, like, yes, when Pochettino came in, he was absolutely, like you said there, you hit the nail on the head. He was aggressive. It was high press, high intensity, but we lost it. Somewhere along the line, we lost it. And I think, like, and when everyone went on about Spurs, like not buying anybody for 2 windows and how well we did, I think like we're paying the price for it. And I think
the light has to burn out at some time.
Exactly. Like if you look at it, like if you take those 2 windows, so we had the same squad for effectively 3 seasons. Like when does that happen? Do you know? Like as I said,
it's rare, especially in the top 6.
Yeah, it is.
Top
like,
6, that's rare.
The last day I was on the podcast again, I said the same. The one thing that I really, really admired Sir Alex for was that he always knew when to let go of a player. No, it didn't matter who it was. If you look back over the top players, like when Beckham still had plenty of football left in him, but Alex Ferguson knew it was his time to go. Yap Stam,
McGrath.
You know, he knew when a player he gotten the best out of him and time to move him on. And when Pochettino alluded to the painful rebuild, I think that's what he meant. The players like Lamela. Lamela's missed the equivalent of 2 full seasons worth of games through injury. He cost us close to 30 million when we got him. Vertonghen he's been a stalwart for the club, but it's just he's 33 now. His legs are a little bit gone. You know, he's done everything he could do for us. He's been immense, but it's time to move him on. Even I'd even say Lloris.
Oh, I'd agree with that. I think Lloris in the
Lloris,
last 18 months has been very error prone, and he's been out with injury as well. So I'd agree with that.
Yeah, it's just I think like he's not the modern day goalkeeper now, do you know? And I don't think his stock is going to be ever higher than when he's a current World Cup winning captain, do you know? If you're trying to sell him on, that's what you put on the CV for him, like, you know. So I think there's changes like that we need, and I think we just need to kind of stop hanging on to play like Danny Rose. Danny Rose, he's out on loan in Newcastle at the moment. Like a couple of years ago, he was one of the best left backs in the league, but he's not now. He's not anymore.
Mourinho wanted him at United.
He did, and Mourinho wanted Eric Dyer at United.
I know.
You know?
Well,
I'm a Dyer fan.
I was as well back in like back in 2016 when you.
I still think, yeah, but he's had a horrible run of luck with injuries, illness. He's got his appendix out. He had wicked like stomach problems and things like that. Like, so I still think he has a little bit in him to show yet. Like the jury's out on him for me still.
Stephen, on the topic of Spurs, like obviously the current game now coming up, Joe, in the first week back, United against Spurs. Like, how do you think, like tactically, with your current form, how do you think like you could maybe win this game against United? Like, where do you think it'll be talked about?
There's no current form for anyone. This is like the season starting all over again just for 9 games, you know. But like if we talk about how we were playing before the break, it was disgusting. I think we won 1 out of 7. I think. Like I was at the home defeat to Leipzig. Like it was horrible, like, you know. But like form wise, I guess, like, I mean, we were on a bad run, but if you look at injury wise, I mean, we had Keane was out, Son was out, Sissoko was out. Do you know? Bergwijn just got injured. Then it was like Son, especially though, like, you know, that's, for example, like if United were missing, say, like Rashford and Martial or something, do you know what I mean? It's hard to play when, especially a club like Spurs who doesn't have backup strikers. We don't believe in it, or for some reason. But but I think how we win the game next week is probably like Mourinho tactics. Do you know? I think we were very unlucky at Old Trafford. Rashford's first goal, like Paolo Gazzaniga was terrible for that. Near post, he should be saving that all day. There's no excuse. Penalty.
Questionable.
I won't go into it. And then even last season, if you look at when you bet us 1-0, like
at Wembley, yeah.
Trippier passed the ball straight to Pogba. Pogba with a perfectly placed pass in over our defence, straight through on goal. Do you know? So I guess how we win next week is what Mourinho would probably do, is let you have the ball and counter with Son and Bergwijn.
Do you think maybe a counter-attack?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think because, to be honest, like Dele Alli getting suspended, I think kind of solves a selection headache for us in terms of, I don't think Dele would have been suited to the game next week. With him playing, we're kind of forced to play him as a 10 and have 2 wingers and a striker. Whereas I know Mourinho prefers the 4-3-3 or 4-3-2-1. So I think with that in mind, it'll probably be Keane up top with Bergwijn and Son behind him. That wide. I think he'll have 3 midfielders, flat back 4.
And Dale, I flipped that question over to you, and I said in the opposite direction. With United, like, how do you think we can maybe exploit Spurs next week, especially with Rashford back now, Bruno Fernandes on a good run of form before the break, and question marks whether Paul Pogba will be in the team. Like, where do you think our strengths will be next week?
I think our strengths is having certain players back and having so many threats going forward. It's like throughout the season we've had so many injuries, and at different stages we haven't been able to use all our stars really at once at any stage. I think with Bruno Fernandes in the team, he unlocks defences in a way that we haven't got another player that's able to do that, unless Pogba's in the right frame of mind. I think having him back, see the way Mourinho's going to try to counter United here is he's going to try and man mark key players like he did against Chelsea when he's United manager. with Hazard. He got Herrera, and he followed him around like a bad smell. He's going to try and do that, but the problem with United is you got Rashford, you got Martial, you got Pogba, you got Fernandes, you got so many players that it's going to be very, very hard to man-mark that amount. So it's going to be interesting to see his defense, how he sets up defensively. But I think Steve is right in terms of hitting us in the counter-attack if they can with the quick players out wide. And they have a good few options out wide as well, where quick players can come off the bench, because a big factor
Lucas
in this
Moura.
as well. Yeah, and you have 5 substitutions. So the depth of your squad is massive here. And I suppose United haven't got the greatest depth squad, but with certain players coming back, it gives Solskjaer kind of a chance to rotate more.
That 5 subs is huge there. That's why I was going to say that, like, that's going to like change the whole dynamic of all games, I think. Do you know what I mean? For us especially, like, we have the likes of Lamela, who, when he's fit and when he's like playing, like he's always like able to get a goal, do you know? But does he start? No. But he's a great option to have. Like you said, Mourinho likes Moura. But
tore us apart at Old Trafford last season.
But he's very ineffective a lot of the time. He has a terrible habit, and every Spurs fan will tell you the same. He has a terrible habit of just running into trouble with the ball. Like he takes an extra touch or 2 touches with the ball and then loses it. You know, so but then every now and again he does something great and smashes the ball into the net. Like so.
Sounds a bit like Anthony Martial last season, to be honest.
Yeah, Martial did often, like, at some stages run himself into a bit of trouble. Like, he'd do something great, and then it's like sometimes he doesn't make up his mind as to what he wants to do. And Chrissy, from your side of things, like, you're completely neutral in this game. Like, where do you think this game is going to be won and lost?
I think the bench, being perfectly honest. I think this, like, both going into it, right, in terms of freshness, like Steve was saying, it's like a brand new season for 9 games. So I think anyone saying going into this, like, prior to this form-wise, I think that kind of goes out the window a bit, because it's been
almost like it's pre-season.
You know, it's been like 3 months. You know, it's almost 3 months. It'll be. I don't want to even say kind of strikers itself, because it's hard to kind of judge in terms of sharpness where any striker is kind of standing at the minute. You know, it's all well and good doing it in a friendly or in training, but in kind of live time where it's going to be a bit more pressure, I think the subs could be a big impact in the game. But I hate to say it, I think Spurs might nick it.
That killed you there.
It actually did, and Steve probably sniggered or something.
Probably the only person on this podcast that thinks Spurs will win it, to be honest.
I was actually thinking a very good and entertaining 0-0 draw. I suppose, like, what I was kind of worried about, right, is if Spurs went 1-0 up and Mourinho just uses this 5 substitutions to waste time. That would be an absolute killer, and it's something
forget wasting time. You put every defender on.
I was just going to say, he'll take off the front 3 and bring on 3 more defenders.
Oh, stop! He's such a shithouse that you just see it happening at some point. Like, do you know what I mean? He will do it in some game in the 9 games. Mark my words. This brings on.
Oh, the thing is, against United, it'd be the perfect game. If they score from a set piece, he'll be more than happy if they go 1-0 up after 5 minutes to defend for his life for 85 minutes, and it won't bother him at all.
As we've only kept 3 clean sheets under Mourinho.
That's mad. And the manager, it's renowned for his defense. Like, that's
exactly. That's one of the things I'm trying to get across there. When everyone says, like, "Oh, Mourinho, he's so defensive." Like, when he came, like, we were scoring goals left, right, and centre, but we're conceding them left, right, and centre too. Like, you know. So, I mean, I'm just looking at the table now in front of me. So Spurs have conceded 40 goals this season. United have conceded 30. That's huge difference. Huge difference.
I think as well in these games, it's going to be huge to start games the front foot, because from watching the Bundesliga and games behind closed doors, when teams go behind and they're either a goal behind or 2 goals behind and they haven't got that lift in the atmosphere, it has a massive effect, and it's very, very eerie. So I think that's one thing I hope to see United start doing, is starting games really quickly and getting an early goal, because as time clicks on with an empty stadium, it's going to be weird for players.
Yeah,
it is.
absolutely.
Like, I mean, the that crowd effect. Like, I mean, any of you that have been to games, like, say, like, when you feel that lift yourself in the crowd even, and you can almost sense a goal coming, you know, and I'm sure that passes on to the players on the pitch as well, like, you know. So it's a very valid point, like that. If you go a goal down, like, your head drops, you don't have the crowd to lift you up, like.
Absolutely. Lads, so Steve, your predicted starting 11 for Tottenham versus United. From Tottenham side.
So obviously Lloris, Davies left back, Aurier right back, and I think you go with Alderweireld and Dyer.
Dyer centre half.
Yeah, I think so.
What do you think your midfield?
It would be Sissoko, Ndombele, and Lo Celso.
What will be your front three then? You've plenty of like
Son, Bergwijn, Kane.
options up there. Son and Bergwijn and Son, Kane and Bergwijn.
Yeah.
Dale, how do you think we're going to line up against Spurs? Do you think, like, we've many different formations we played in kind of the last couple of months? Like, how do you think we're going to go in terms of like our lineup? How do we tactically set up?
I think the defence really picks itself. Apart from one inclusion, I'm going to put Eric Bailly in beside Maguire. I think if Bailly could get a run of games together, there could be definitely a future for him at Manchester United. There's a good player in him. He's just very rash and he's very unlucky with injuries. He goes into challenge he doesn't need to make and ends up in the treatment room for months, and it doesn't help his case because he needs that run of games. I have Luke Shaw at left back, Wan-Bissaka right back, De Gea in goal. Midfield then is the trickiest part. I'm going to start Matic. He started against City in the game at Old Trafford before the season was suspended. And I'm not going to rush Pogba in because there's so many games coming up. I think Pogba would be better coming off the bench to ease him back in. And the main reason for that is there's so many midfielders at United that are in form before this pandemic. You had Fred, who fans were very frustrated with beforehand, but they grew very fond of him. He was probably your most improved player this season. And you have
100%.
McTominay too. And you have Bruno Fernandes. So I've gone for midfield three of Matic, Fred, and Matic, Fred, and Fernandes. And up front, I've gone with Martial, James, and Rashford.
That's probably likeliest way we're going to go. I've kind of went with something different. I've kind of went the same formation, and we played against Manchester City, the 3-4-1-2. Ollie seemed to like that formation in the big games this season. Obviously, the goalkeeper, De Gea, picks himself. Now I've gone with the back five. Well, it's a three when you're in the attack, but back five, obviously defending. I've gone Wan-Bissaka, Eric Bailly, Harry Maguire, Victor Lindelof, and Luke Shaw. Now, I was kind of in two minds whether to put Luke Shaw into the left centre-back role in the back three, because he did flourish there in many games this season, but I've gone with Victor Lindelof because he's a player who can bring the ball out of the back, and especially when you're playing the back three, you need defenders who are comfortable on the ball. I think Lindelof, Maguire do give us that. Midfield three, I did have Paul Pogba in there, but I think we need to ease him back in there. So I've changed my mind. I have a midfield three of Scott McTominay, Fred, and Bruno Fernandes. I think with playing against Spurs, you're going to need legs in midfield, and I think Fred and McTominay do give us that. And Fred is great at breaking up play, and he releases the ball very quickly, and especially with Scott McTominay, you need his physical presence in there. And Bruno Fernandes, he picks himself. Do you know what I mean? He's the informed player at the moment, and I think he'll give us something different against Spurs. Up top, I've gone for that. Yeah.
Sorry, just out of the players you did so far, where do you see the weak link in United's team? Because Mourinho has said on Sky Sports a number of times about Lindelof and his aerial, how poor he is in the air. So I could see the likes of Lindelof being crowded with loads of high balls with Kane.
I think they probably could do that. They probably could use Harry Kane, probably go direct and probably sit on Lindelof. That could happen. That is a possibility.
we don't
You know,
we don't play balls into the box though. That's not our style at all.
yeah, but Mourinho now, especially live on television, he did say it though, but Dale did make a good point. Up top though, I did go with Martial. Obviously, he's a top number 9. Though he wasn't a good run of form before the pandemic came, and Bruno were developing a good partnership, and I hope obviously when the season now continues that he can continue that form. And I went with Marcus Rashford up top with him. Now it's hard. I feel harsh leaving Dan James out, because in the front two, when we play this formation, Dan James is very pivotal as to how we press. But I think Marcus Rashford, before he was injured, he was on a great run of form, and I think he can do that similar role at Dan James, where he can press for his centre backs, especially when they're on the ball, and put them under pressure. So we're meant to have Jamie here as well to do his starting 11, but unfortunately he was not here, so I didn't actually manage to get his one. Lads, your combined 11s, I did discuss this with you earlier, between Spurs and United. Now, I had to change mine a couple of times because I felt I was a bit too biased. Do you know what I mean? Dale, how did you go with your combined 11 between Spurs and United?
Gone with De Gea in goal, which that wasn't an easy choice. De Gea's not been great this season, but I don't think Lloris has been much better. Defensively, I've gone with United back 4. Spurs have been very bad defensively this season, and in previous years we'd all be boasting about the likes of Alderweireld, who are wanted at Manchester United and so, but they're leaking goals, and United have been better defensively. It's difficult in midfield. Name out the back 4: Wan-Bissaka, Maguire, Lindelof, and Shaw, and that's based on form, because I don't think too highly of Lindelof as a defender. In midfield, I can't pronounce his name. Celso. It will be my one Spurs option or choice, and Bruno Fernandes, partnered by on form, I'm going to go with Fred. And up front, with this season, the front 3, I have to put Son in, Harry Kane, and Marcus Rashford. Marcus Rashford's been United's best performing player this year before Fernandes came in. So you have 3 attackers there: Son, Rashford, Kane, and Bruno Fernandes as a 4th. You're going to score loads of goals.
Absolutely. Steve, I'm interested to hear your combined 11. Talk to me.
Again, tough decision, like Dale said about in goal, but based on the season so far, De Gea, just because again Lloris missed an awful lot of it. Left back Shaw. I'm not a huge fan of his, but it's him or Ben Davies. Ben Davies does a job, but he's not. I don't think he's at the level of a left back that we would like to have in the club. Centre halves, I went with Alderweireld and Smalling.
Smalling?
He's a United player.
Yeah.
Having an unbelievable season.
Based on form, he's allowed in, I think.
Yeah. I think, what, Steve, I'll give you that one.
Yeah. Right back, Aurier. Aurier, as an attacking right back, Aurier is very, very effective. Yes, as a defender, not much, but in Mourinho, the way Mourinho plays that kind of pivot system with the right back, so basically Ben Davies plays as the left centre back and Aurier pushes on. He's done well for us this season. He's been he's very unsung this year, Aurier. Any of the games I went to myself and seen him in person, he's always lively. He's always looking for the ball. He's always going down the wing. He's got a goal and 4 assists this season as well, and he hasn't played in every game either. So I have him in there. Then I have Lo Celso, Sissoko, and Bruno. But the Sissoko one, I think if we were talking about after the 9 games, I think Ndombele would be over Lo Celso there, or over Sissoko. I think Ndombele will come right for us. And then I've Rashford, Son, and Kane.
Yeah, I think that's the most common front 3 that all of us would have. In goal, I've gone David De Gea. Again, that was a tough one for me as well, because he's not having his greatest years. Right back, I've gone Aaron Wan-Bissaka. I think for me, that decision speaks for itself. So he's been up there with United's best players this year. He's been very consistent. Centre backs, I've gone with Toby Alderweireld and Maguire. Now, I kind of feel bad on doing that now because looking at everyone else's, I kind of went on reputation there with Toby Alderweireld as the defender. And I actually went with Ben Davies as left back. Now, Ben Davies for Tottenham, he is a good player. He is a good left back, but now I kind of regret my back four decision, as I must say. My midfield three, I've gone a midfield three of Scott McTominay, Bruno Fernandes, and Lo Celso. I feel like McTominay has been also very consistent for United this year, and as we did allude to on other podcasts, if you told us last year he would have been one of our favourite players and talked about players, we would have been laughed at, and I think he would do very good in this midfield, especially like he'd bring that physical presence, and you obviously have the flair players there as well in Bruno and Lo Celso. And again, my front three is Son, Kane, and Marcus Rashford. Chrissy, would you, if of all the three teams we just mentioned there, is there anything you change like massively of all the teams?
Probably on Dale's one, I wouldn't have Lloris in goal. I still think De Gea is a bit better than Lloris. Like, in my own personal opinion, I don't think Lloris has been the same since the shoulder injury he had in the Euro 2016 final. I know it's 4 years ago. I just don't think he's been the same goalkeeper mentally in terms of he knows he's getting older and he's a bit more fragile and prone to injuries. I still put De Gea over Lloris in goal on my end.
That's the only thing you change out of all the teams.
That's the only thing I changed though.
I feel absolutely disgusted myself that I picked Toby Alderweireld when I think about it now on this season.
Ben Davies,
who put Lloris in goal?
Yeah,
did
Dale actually put De Gea in goal?
I thought you said Lloris.
No,
I thought you said Lloris played better.
So as you're paying attention anyway, Chrissy.
We've a minute left.
We've a minute left.
Yeah.
Right.
Score predictions.
Score predictions, lads. Chrissy, for United and Tottenham, what you thinking?
Taking 1-0 Tottenham.
Dale?
2-0 United.
2-0. And Steve?
I'm going to be optimistic and say a 2-2 draw.
Back
That's very optimistic.
I'm going to go for a drab United 1-0. Paul Pogba off the bench to score and dab in front of Mourinho.